Hey everyone, welcome back to Room 237, and this is a very random review because I've never reviewed a film of this genre. I guess I could put this in with my uh, playlist of extreme films because I think it actually is considered an extreme film. It's not a horror film. It's not even entirely controversial. It's just known for its excessive, over the top gore and violence. But it's actually a martial arts film, which I've never been into. I've never really been much of an action fan, like Seagal or Van Damme or Dolph Lundgren. Never been much of an action fan. So I've really never seen that many martial arts films. But this one I've seen clips of, and I was like, I gotta see this movie. And that is the 1991 Hong Kong film Riki-Oh, the story of Ricky. Now, I know there's a ton of versions out there. I think there's a Arrow Blu-ray of it, or at least like an Ultimate Edition, that actually has the reversible cover that has like a picture of the manga, because like Ichi the Killer, even though that's Japanese, this is based on a manga. And I would say Ichi the Killer is definitely more controversial than this, because that is more serious, straightforward violence, even though it has some of the most horrendous CGI I've ever seen. This is more campy, comedic, intentionally over the top. In fact, when I saw clips of it, and then while I was watching it, I had this thought, and then I went and I checked out a Rambo Rat for Life's review of it, and he said the exact same thing. This is like, because it also came out around the same time. This is like if early Peter Jackson, did a martial arts film. Because it's, take like a Bruce Lee movie, which if I were to watch a martial arts film, it would be Bruce Lee. Say he's doing like a Bruce Lee type movie, but he's doing it with the Dead Alive, bad taste, over the top, comedic gore. Although this is more realistic looking than Dead Alive. And I had a lot of fun with this. This movie was so much fun. The story's very simple. Which in the movie he's called a Riki-Ho. But it takes place in the future. It takes place in 2001, where all prisons have been privatized and kind of run at the discretion of the warden or wardens of prisons. He's sentenced to 10 years for the murder of this crime lord that is essentially responsible for the death of Ricky's girlfriend, which we see pieced together throughout a series of flashbacks. But Ricky he possesses this superhuman strength, and which I think he was born with, and then he learned martial arts through this one mentor. I think it's called Qigong. And well, actually, let me get through the production first. It was directed by, and of course these are all Chinese names, so please forgive me. Lam Nai Choi, and it stars Siu-Wong as Ricky, and actually his father, who's known in the genre as well, Fan Mei Shang, he plays the assistant warden, who's, I guess throughout most of the film, he's the main antagonist until the actual warden shows up. It's also Ho Ka Kui and Yakuri Oshima. Of course, I'm not familiar with any of these actors. I do know that Siu-Wong would go on to be in 2 of the Ip Man films. And I think he's had actually kind of a great career, or somewhat prolific career in the martial arts genre. So really the only reason why I checked this out was because it was like the Peter Jackson Dead Alive sort of comedic film of the genre. And I had a world of fun with it. Basically, he goes to this prison and is very strictly run, and of course, where he's super strong and indestructible, it starts causing problems for the assistant warden and sort of the prisoners that he has run the place. Like, there's 4 wings, north, south, east, west, that has like a gang leader, but then there's this other group. I think in the manga they're called like the Heavenly Four, or the 4 Heavenly Kings, but in the English version they're called the Gang of 4, who are also immensely strong and talented in fighting. That is basically the prison's attempts to stop and kill Ricky, and he befriends all the prisoners that, you know, I guess are unfairly there, or at least unfairly treated. And his powers are kind of nebulous, like, because there are times where it seems like, why can't he break out of whatever a predicament he's in? Which, what I got out of it was he has to taste blood first, because there are several scenes where he'll get hit and he'll kind of taste his own blood, and then, you know, he does do a lot, like with his eyes, that he'll kind of, you know, you'll see him kind of power up. I do know that this heavily influenced the Mortal Kombat games, because there has been comparisons to Liu Kang and Ricky, but also just the I keep saying over the top because that's exactly what it is. These sort of fatality sequences in the fight scenes. Also, like, there is one scene, I guess it's called like the X-ray attack, where Ricky crushes a guy's skull, but we see it through like an X-ray view. So I guess this is kind of like to Mortal Kombat what Jacob's Ladder was to Silent Hill. And I mean, and yeah, it is kind of hokey and cheesy. Like, the acting and the dubbing isn't that great, but, you know, this isn't the kind of movie, like, say, the only real reference I could give would be Bruce Lee, where you would go to see something that's kind of serious. It's not really a comedy, but the levels of gore and camp that's in it, it's definitely more like, that's why you would watch it. I mean, it's why I watched it. There was one other thing I was gonna say. And I mean, like, at first we see Ricky show up at this prison. The a metal detector goes off because he's got 5 bullets still in his chest. And throughout the film, through a series of flashbacks, we see him with his girlfriend, him with his mentor, and eventually how his girlfriend gets killed, when she's on her way home from class or on her way to another class, and she sees these people doing drugs, which a dealer sees her. Seeing this, he brings her back to the crime lord as like a witness. He's about to assault her. She runs free up to the roof and then, tries to escape but falls to her death. And they don't really add a scream or anything, so it really just looks like a mannequin falling. I would say that's one of the lesser effects. Apart with when the assistant warden is killed because he's shot with this thing. The warden has a pistol that when you're shot with it pretty much makes you expand and explode. You could definitely see like the dummy face that they used. But the effects, I will say the gore is more realistic than Dead Alive. Like, there's a lot of pink and almost cartoony effects in Dead Alive. This looks more like straightforward gore. But, like in Dead Alive, there is sort of this transformation into this larger-than-life, very exaggerated, cartoony type villain. Which, this would be the warden. The one clip I've seen it on Facebook. It would be the meat grinder, and then at the end when he punches the prison wall and it all crumbles. I mean, not really getting into the story, because there is a story, but it really is more of just like the gore and the violence. I mean, he'll go to like when he chops people in the arm, their arm just breaks off, or their leg. There's a part like when he goes to punch someone that's going to punch him, and when he hits their fist, it like explodes. Just blood goes everywhere. It's a part where they bury him alive with like a tube for oxygen, because if he can live for 3 days, then they'll let him go. And they call him the Gang of 4, but there's only 3 members. I think the warden is supposed to be the 4th one, but I'm not entirely sure about that. It never actually says it. But like, one is named Tarzan. He's like the larger-than-life strong one. And then there's one that has like these needles or blades that are on strings that he's very quick with. And then there's one that I think was called Rogue or something. She's the martial artist. At one point, she puts like a bunch of razor blades in his mouth, tapes his mouth shut, then hits him a bunch of times. So there's like razor blades sticking out of his cheeks. There's this one guy named Oscar that was supposed to fight and kill Ricky. But of course, Ricky kills him. And then the guy's godson looks up to Ricky and he has no tongue. So the Gang of 4 decided to make some sort of example out of him. So we see them like skin him from like here down, but then on his face. But then later on we see that he's in this pit or somewhere where like this is all he has left of his skin. He's been completely skinned alive. Unless, of course, Oscar was also was meant to be the 4th member, because he does die pretty early. And I mean, there's a lot of scenes, like, there's one that's straight out of Evil Dead, like, Ricky punches right through this guy's stomach, and when he pulls it out, it's just like a fountain of this thick red blood, sort of like the ending to the first Evil Dead, when she gets stabbed and when she pulls it out, and it's just like a blood faucet. Or, you know, like, and then of course the warden has this kid who I think it's an adult or a young adult playing a young kid who does look like I don't know if I'm allowed to say it, but there is a world leader that he looks like. But I mean, he kind of giggles like a young kid. He gets spoiled. Like, we get the idea that he's spoiled. And, like, he wears like these. He's dressed kind of like a schoolboy, even though he's like the size of an adult and he's big. I was hoping there was going to be a scene where he got killed, because I wouldn't put it past this movie, but that didn't happen. And there's all these different attempts to kill Ricky. Like, there's one where he's in this cell where these things open up and it fills with cement. But of course, he gets out of it. Of course, when they bury him alive. When he's in this one cell that has the ceiling come down to crush him. Which, this is kind of a weird effect, because this is when he's with the Tarzan guy. He, like, punches a few of his limbs, and then he, like, punches through his jaw and, like, completely explodes his jaw right off his head. But then he sort of comes up to life to hold the ceiling that's coming down to kind of buy Ricky time, because the warden was saying some stuff about how the inmates aren't really people. So he's holding the ceiling up for Ricky, and he says like, go Ricky, I'll see you later. And he still has a jaw. He's just covered in blood. I guess there was no way for him to say the line if he looked like the opening zombie from Day of the Dead. I mean, it's not a nitpick. I mean, we had the effect, and that was cool. And he was still covered in blood, which was fine. And then, of course, the warden says he had the same mentor, so he's part of the same Qigong type of training or whatever. So, like, he does this thing, like, where his limbs stretch out and he grows to this larger-than-life, like, this very fake-looking giant, like, out of very much, like, the giant mother from Dead Alive. Only not as exaggerated, but he's still, you know, like, his six-pack sticks way out. He's got, like, crazy mouth and eyebrows. But Ricky, he's able to defeat him. He puts him in because they're in, like, the kitchen of the prison. Puts him in this meat grinder, and he's pushing his head down so that he goes down. We see all the meat coming out the other side, blood flying everywhere. That's like the grand finale. I guess there was going to be a story of Ricky 2, but that never happened. But, so yeah, basically it seems like the 4 gangs of the prison sort of crumble, and they all start following Ricky. He's their hero. And then it's really Ricky against the assistant warden, and then the warden when he shows up. And Ricky represents the prisoners as a whole, because every prisoner that helps Ricky ends up being killed, because the assistant warden, he's kind of at first I was thinking like a Bond villain, but I think martial arts films have these kind of villains. Because the only other martial arts film I've seen was a Fistful of Yen, which is part of Kentucky Fried Movie. But he's got like a glass eye that he keeps mints in. He's got like a hook for a hand that he puts different things on. I think in his office there's like a wall of porno tapes. At least that's what it looked like. And one of his things is that he'll take a prisoner, he'll put the hook in their mouth and drag them. He does that to this one prisoner that brings food to Riki. When they all had to bury him, they all say that they're sorry. So it really is kind of like a Cuckoo's Nest kind of thing where he kind of comes in and saves everyone. A very big cult film. I'm actually surprised this doesn't have a Criterion release. I actually am. But yeah, the main reason why I checked it out was because just from what I heard about it and from what I've seen in the clips, it really is like a Peter Jackson, a martial arts film. And that's what I got out of it. And I had a ton of fun watching it. It was one of the most fun I've had. Or let me rephrase that. It's one of the movies that I've had some of the most fun watching since I saw Bad Taste, which I reviewed Bad Taste after I saw it for the first time. Like, I haven't seen a movie that was campy and that gory just for the sake of being that gory since Bad Taste. And I had just as much fun as when I saw Bad Taste or even Dead Alive years before that. A lot of fun watching this. I'm glad I finally checked it out. This might actually be a movie I will upgrade to that Ultimate Edition, which I think is Arrow. But yeah, Riki-Oh's Story of Riki, highly recommend it. Even if you're not a martial arts fan, if you're a fan of Mortal Kombat, which I still haven't seen the new one, but this is more Mortal Kombat than the two movies from the 90s. I mean, just the way each punch or chop has some sort of completely gore and just like severing of a limb or destruction of a face. I mean, there was one where a guy gets hit in the head. Oh, it's the crime lord. It's when he kills the crime lord. It's like this crater in his skull, like it's all caved in, and it's got like the lumps all around it. All practical effects. So much fun. I really enjoyed this movie. So yeah, even if you're not into martial arts or even movies that are poorly dubbed, yeah, I've seen a lot of poorly dubbed movies. I mean, I have a whole Italian collection. It's worth it just for the gore and violence. Hell of a lot of fun. I really enjoyed it. Riki-Oh, the Story of Riki. Thank you for watching.